I'm here with Dr. Gabriella Baki from the University of Toledo to do the myths and misconceptions for skincare presentation. So I'm just going to do, I guess, in the next 20-ish minutes, a rapid fire, and then there will also be time for live Q&A. But my first question to you is, what are common misconceptions that you hear about skincare formulations?
I hear so many misconceptions. I picked three here. So, one would be the higher the concentration, the better the skin treatment is. And that is not necessarily true. Number two is you don't need to wear sunscreen if it's wintertime, if it's a cloudy day, or if you have darker skin, which is not true. You have to wear sunscreen regardless of your skin color and regardless of what kind of day it is outside. Even if you don't see the sun shining through the clouds, you are still being exposed to UV radiation. And the third one is a good sunscreen should allow you to tan but prevent wrinkle formation and cancer formation. No, a good sunscreen will prevent tanning, which is the first phase of skin damage that will then lead to wrinkle formation and all the other bad things. So, good sunscreens do not allow you to tan. These are the three that I picked for you today.
So, why can you not tell the product performance, especially as the average consumer, but maybe even as a cosmetic chemist, based on just the ingredient list? What does and doesn't the ingredient list tell you?
The ingredient list really tells you the order of the ingredients to a certain extent. So, in the United States and mostly around the world, ingredients are labeled based on, we call it order of predominance. So you start with the ingredient that is in the highest concentration in the product, and you keep going down until you reach 1% in the United States. Below 1%, you can mix and match ingredients and move the ones up that are not necessarily the highest below 1%, but you kind of want to feature them more in the middle of the ingredient list. Let's say there are still some other rules where color additives, for example, need to go to the end of the list regardless of their concentration. It really gives you a sense of what's the ingredient that's in the highest concentration. If you are a consumer, it's really hard to pinpoint where the 1% line is. As a chemist, you just work with ingredients and you know their recommended percentages, so it is easier. But it really doesn't tell you if the formulator was using a special delivery system. For example, if they encapsulated an ingredient that is either sensitive itself to light, or if it could cause skin irritation if penetrated the skin too fast, for example. It also doesn't tell you the solubility of the ingredients, which has a huge impact on the potency of cosmetic actives. And you can also not see surface treatments if any surface treatments are applied to, let's say, color additives or UV filters, because those ingredients will be listed separately, so they will not be tagging along on the ingredient list. So, what an ingredient list is good for, in my opinion, is to kind of identify ingredients that you might be allergic to and just have a sense of what's in the highest amount, but don't try to break it down too much and try to figure out which ingredient goes with what. Leave it to the chemists that are formulating the product for you.
And I guess the example that I like to give that paints a picture is with cake. You and I start out with the same ingredients. You make it, I make it. Put it for maybe a little too long in the oven, or the concentrations are slightly different. And my cake turns out dry and gross, and yours gooey and delicious. So, same ingredients, very different end product. Should consumers, and you've already alluded to this, be looking for specific percentages of ingredients? What are your thoughts on, because a lot of consumers do it? And also, I see a lot of skin influencers recommending people do this on percentage hunting. On the flip side, something that we see a lot of are product claims based on ingredient percentage alone. You see like 2% hyaluronic acid, and then there's this perception around there. How compelling are these types of claims as a standalone to you as a cosmetic chemist?
Great question. And like I said in my first answer, I see this a lot. So my answer is please stop hunting for percentages. Higher concentration does not equal better efficacy, even for the same ingredient. It really comes down to formulation design, how that ingredient is stabilized, what it's used together with. Higher concentration can lead to skin irritation. Higher concentration can also affect your product's stability and can change what the product feels like on the skin. We call it sensory characteristics. There are ingredients that are actually performing better at lower concentrations. So just looking for higher concentrations, you will not find products that work better for you. You kind of have to trust the chemist that put the product together, that they were choosing the right ingredients for the active that you are working with. So for these reasons, I do not hunt for percentages. I kind of look at the claims on the product and look at the ingredient list and just try to see what they might have done with the ingredient, but really just put your faith in the brand that you're using and use the products that you pick.
There's this perception that sodium lauryl sulfate equals bad. It's going to dry out your skin or be irritating or whatever. Or that silicones equals bad. Like it's going to coat your hair in the worst I've seen is like a plastic film. Like, I don't know about that, but this one ingredient is bad. So, what are your thoughts on fear mongering of individual ingredients?
Fear mongering worked really well, and I'm sad to see that when there's a company that doesn't have any ingredients to emphasize in their product, a lot of times they would start calling out ingredients that they do not have in their formula. And that really ignites fear in consumers, because if a brand calls out an ingredient, then consumers will start thinking maybe that ingredient was bad in the first place. If they don't have it, maybe others shouldn't have it too. And so it's just wrong calling ingredients out. When it comes to sulfates, in my opinion, SLS is just fine. It's a great cleanser and it can be formulated to be less irritating. Yes, it can cause skin irritation in high concentrations if you leave it on the skin or hair, but the way typically chemists formulate them, following percentages, combining them with ingredients that will reduce the potential irritation, these are things you don't see as a consumer. There are formulations, many products out there that are safe to use and are not irritating. I've used SLS in body cleansers to shampoos. They also use them in makeup products. There are eyeliners that use them as a emulsion stabilizer. And I've used all of these products without any issues. So as long as the chemists are formulating them properly, following the guidelines, SLS is fine. Silicones are also just fine. They are hypoallergenic, they are vegan. Actually, we don't have to deal with oxidation issues when we deal with silicones, which is a big plus. I think what I usually hear is that they can accumulate on the skin and hair, and then just your hair could become more like waxy looking or lose its luster and shine over time if you do not remove these products properly. So when you use a lot of silicone based products, you just have to use good cleansers with them that will actually help you remove these products and they don't build up. If you have any allergic reactions to an ingredient, I think it's fine to pick on ingredients, but if you don't have allergic reactions, just leave the ingredient list to the formulators. And I want to say that product efficacy really depends on three main factors. One would be your skin. If your skin is healthy or damaged, if it's hydrated or dry, these are things chemists cannot change. Number two would be the active ingredient that, or your main ingredient in the product that you're working with. Cosmetic chemists cannot change the ingredient structure itself. You need synthetic organic chemists. You can go back to the lab and reconfigure the structure to change the molecule itself, its solubility, how it binds to receptors, and all of that. Again, cosmetic chemists cannot change that. They just take the ingredient that they have. But number three is the vehicle, which is all the other ingredients other than your active ingredient. And this is where cosmetic chemists can make huge changes and can really formulate products that will allow even possibly irritating ingredients to be non-irritating. Formulators have ways to ensure ingredient stability. They can emulsify, solubilize, all those things you need for proper function. And these are things that consumers will not see based on an ingredient list. Again, I would just leave it up to the chemists and just put good faith in the brand that you are using and trust the brands.
How much can cosmetics really do? So, some people think that they can get Botox like effects. In fairness, I've seen brands maybe say this and not comply with regulations. That's a drug claim. Is that a reality? Thoughts on consumer perceptions or expectations on what they can expect for their skincare?
So I think consumers should not expect drug-like effects from cosmetic products. So what is a drug-like effect? So in the United States, cosmetics cannot change the structure or function of the skin. They will make us look better, smell better, help clean the skin, but not change the way your body works. When we talk about drugs, they can change, at least temporarily, the way your body functions or the structure of your skin or hair. So, Botox will, for example, at least temporarily change the muscle function. And that's why it's so effective, for example, for facial wrinkles. But that is a drug like effect. Cosmetics in the United States legally cannot do what Botox is doing. And so I would say read the claims and base your expectations on the claims, but try to really understand the claims. And we focus a lot on this with the students in the classroom, that there are minor differences in just one word. So if you read a label or read the claim, and the claim says changes the appearance of wrinkles, while another product may say reduces wrinkles, the two don't mean the same thing. So really try to understand what the company is trying to communicate with you and base your expectations on what you read. All companies have to back up their claims. This is something consumers do not see. They don't see the data, but they had to do studies before they could claim anything on their label. So if they say percent reduction in something or percent enhancement in eyelash volume, for example, they had to have studies that prove that. Now, I also have to say that when you go to trade shows, a lot of times you see ingredient suppliers claiming wonderful effects of their ingredients, but it doesn't mean that the cosmetic products that use those ingredients will be able to claim those effects or will have those effects in their formulas. Finished goods companies, so brands of all sorts, have to do claim substantiation on their products. So even if an ingredient supplier was claiming that their niacinamide was doing certain things, it doesn't mean that the finished product can do that or is allowed to do that in the United States. So it's very promising to purchase ingredients that have great clinical data, but companies are supposed to do their own clinical studies and find out the claims themselves. And like you said, if they find drug like claims, they either have to make their products into an OTC drug cosmetic product, as I call these products, because there are products that are not purely pharmaceutical. There are products that are kind of both, providing you with cosmetic functions and pharmaceutical functions, or reformulate the products and make them less potent if they want to keep them in the cosmetic side of things.
Moving on to another topic that a lot of people have questions about, which is pH. I got this question from my Patreon supporter, Janine, who asks, does layering formulas with different pH levels affect how they perform? So, say you have like, I don't know, low pH, AHA, and then some other like mid pH, something else. So, is that going to affect the performances? Can the pH of one product affect the pH of another? So I suppose now we're coming into like we're layering products, obviously
Mhm.
using them in the same session. Is this even something that consumers need to think about? And then I'll also say something that I've seen online is that there are recommendations to like look for specific pH. Some people go out so far and will test the pH of their products and be like, aha, I knew it was bad. What do you think about that?
So to take a step back, your skin's natural pH is 4.5 to 5.5. If you are out of this range for a prolonged period of time, that could, especially if you go out upwards into more alkaline, going above 5.5, for a longer period of time, it could favor the growth of microorganisms, allow those to produce byproducts, which can disturb your skin barrier, possibly contribute to skin diseases. Now, your skin is really good at resetting its own pH. So, if you apply products on your skin that have a pH out of your normal range, your skin will be able to reset its own pH and just keep that acid mantle, as we call it. I think when it comes to layering products, so you mentioned, for example, let's say glycolic acid, which is an alpha hydroxy acid. We know that it's a great chemical peel and has to be formulated at a low pH. Otherwise, it's just not going to be able to penetrate the top layers of the skin because of its iodized state. And then with glycolic acid, for example, it's recommended to use sunscreens because alpha hydroxy acids can make your skin more sun sensitive. So then it's logical then during the day you would apply a sunscreen. When it comes to mineral sunscreens, a lot of them have a pH between like 6 and 8, more like 7 and 8, because that's where zinc ions would be stable at. So we're looking at a product that is more like a pH 4 and then a product that is pH 7. You can layer these products and your skin will be just fine and the product efficacy will be just fine. The pH is necessary for the products to work and be stable in the bottle, but they will be fine when you layer them on top of each other. I would say I would wait just a little bit, not like 20 minutes or 30 minutes that sometimes you read online, but just giving the toner a little bit of time to like 15-20 seconds to absorb, and then you could apply whatever products you apply afterwards. I would say I haven't done this in the lab, but I would say if you take a bottle of a glycolic acid toner and you take a bottle of a, let's say, a mineral sunscreen, and you squirt both of those into one beaker, mix it all together, unless the products were buffered themselves to keep the pH where it is formulated at, I think the pH will shift and become closer to each other. But this is not the same thing as if you lay your products on the top of your skin. So as soon as you start applying a product to your skin, you start breaking the emulsion down. Ingredients that are volatile like water will start leaving the product. So it's not going to be the same product that is sitting in the bottle. And so it starts absorbing immediately into the skin. When it comes to glycolic acid, for example, mineral sunscreens are supposed to sit on the top of your skin. So it's not even supposed to penetrate. So I would not be concerned about layering products or really going after looking at pH. Just if the product was formulated at the right pH, it will work and it will be stable and it will do what it needs to do. I would not invest into buying a pH meter for home. Proper pH meters that we use in labs are a couple $1,000s at least. If you just buy those pH strips, I don't think that they are very reliable, to be honest, to start with. So I would not double check product pH at home and just throw out products based on what you see in your kitchen.
There's a common perception that fragrance in skincare equals bad. Something that I've observed is people equate fragrance and skincare, like the fragrance that you see in like a facial skincare formulation, as the same kind of thing as a perfume product. As in, this is what I've gotten commentary on my Instagram when I post about this. You're being rude to the people around you that might have a fragrance sensitivity to the smell by putting some product with like 0.3%. What's the concentration in fragrance? I mean, it varies, but it's a lot more than what you'd see in skincare. Is fragrance in skincare bad?
Okay, so fragrances are known to be irritating ingredients. When we look at what could possibly irritate the consumer in a product, fragrances and certain preservatives are on the top of the list. So we have to say fragrances are irritating. The main reason to that is because when we add a drop of a fragrance to a batch of a product, while it's one word, fragrance, that's what you will see on the label. It could be 20 to 100 ingredients mixed together to get a specific scent. So when you're dropping in one drop, you are adding 20 to 100 ingredients to your product base. And there could be ingredients that are more irritating in that blend. In the European Union, there is a list of potentially irritating fragrance allergens that need to be labeled individually on products if the amounts of those ingredients exceed a certain level. And it's different for leave-on versus rinse-off products. But so we know that they are possibly irritating, but they are used at very small amounts. So when you use a fine fragrance, the one that you spray on yourself, those fine fragrances usually have high concentrations of the fragrance ingredient itself in a water and alcohol base, hydroalcoholic base. When we come to skincare products, we use very, very small amounts of those ingredients. So it is very rare, I would say, that you could smell someone's facial moisturizer if you are just in the same room with them. With that much fragrance in a skin moisturizer, formulators would possibly put a lot of consumers out to possible irritation. So we do not use the same amounts of the ingredients. So I think we are fine using fragrance products. Unless you have allergic reactions, it's really hard to figure out which individual fragrance you are allergic to. Even if you go to an allergy test where they do the scratch test on your forearm, they're possibly not going to find the one that you are allergic to. So you might just need to play around with the products that are out there. You could use unscented or fragrance-free products that will either not smell like anything but still have masking agents, or are completely free of fragrances if you are that much sensitive to possibly fragrances. But I have to say you're asking the wrong person, because I'm all in for fragrances. So I always smell the products, and if they don't smell right, I move on to the next one, which is easy to do in the cosmetic industry, because for the same category, there are so many product offerings out there. If it comes to pharmaceutical products, you have whatever skin condition, or you have back pain, you might have one or two products you can pick from. So the smell really is not that important when it comes to pharmaceutical products. But in the cosmetic world, there are so many options we can do. So that's my take on fragrances.
So a little bit more nuanced than the blanket statement that sometimes people say on social media that fragrance equals bad. So that was Dr. Baki's presentation on myths and misconceptions, and it's now time for Q&A.